With the many shifts in digital world, it's no surprise to see influencer marketing is on the up. In fact, brands are projected to spend $15 billion on influencer marketing during 2022. But why are brands choosing influencer marketing, and what does this mean when it comes to marketing for children and young people? It's a controversial subject. Ofcom's 2022 report into media use and attitude show that 4 in 10 children aged 3 to 17 who watch videos online said that they watch content created by influencers on sites such as TikTok and YouTube. And with influencers seemingly earning fame and fortune with ease, the kidfluencer can be an attractive career choice too. More kids want to be influencers than astronauts, and according to Ofcom, 3 in 10 children uploaded their videos in 2021. So what does this mean for brands, and who is responsible for protecting the kidfluencer and the children who follow them? Come and join us in our Children's Influencer Marketing Where Best to Put Your Money session as we talk to a panel of leading industry experts on all things influencer. So let's meet our panel.
So I'm Giles Harris, and I set up and run a company about 15 years ago called Come Round. It's a word of mouth marketing agency. But before I talk about that, about me, I used to be a lawyer in the music industry because all I ever wanted to do was work in the music industry. Most people who work there wanted to be pop stars. I hold my hand up, but didn't have what it took. So we took a job in the music industry. I became a lawyer who had ideas, and those ideas got the better of me and eventually led to starting up a word of mouth marketing business. And where I stand on the topic is maybe going to divide the group, which is probably a good thing. I'm in favor of regular people being regular influencers. You, me, we're all influencing our friends about something or other. So that's what I'll be talking about.
I'm Jess Rigby, and I'm the Senior Brand Marketing Manager at Pan Macmillan. So I work in the Macmillan Children's Books imprint, and we publish books from babies right up until YA. My specific remit is our brand authors, such as Jude Donaldson and Rod Campbell, and I also work on our licensed products like Lego and Moomin. And we work with both paid and unpaid influencers. So I'm kind of straddling the fence slightly in this. So I think I'll be a bit on both sides. But yeah, that's where I'm sitting at the moment.
I am Laura Edwards, co-founder of Viral Talent. The agency is now 10 years old, and we were one of the first agencies in the UK to actually start representing and managing exclusively creators. We have got over 35 creators on our books currently that we manage exclusively, but we also work direct with brands to ensure that they're using the right influencers. And yeah, like Andy has just said, the marketing digital spend in the influencer world is just going to increase this year and already next year. You know, I know already like marketing spends in excess of $16.4 billion. So yeah, it's an exciting space to be in, but like Andy says, it's very controversial.
My name's Allstein.
I'm Sarah.
And we're content creators. Predominantly we do, family content. We've been doing it for around 2 years now, we'll say about 2 years. How it actually came about is miraculous. We didn't want to do it at first. It was actually a means just to pass time during lockdown when COVID happened. And it just seemed to gather some serious traction. And we kind of saw, and I think we're seeing it even more now, the impact of what we do in terms of creating content. Because originally we was actually doing it to create memories for our family. And, slowly we started seeing that it was reaching more than just our family.
And there was benefits to it as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how we came about.
So my first question to the panel was the big one, which is, do you think brands should choose to work with influencers or with traditional media, or both? And if you could explain your reasons.
We actually don't tend to use only traditional media or only influencers in our advertising. It tends to be a combination of the two. Often it will be that the influencer online advertising can be a bit more targeted, so it works as an amplification around the work we're already doing in those more traditional spaces. So if you have kind of, for example, outdoor advertising, and then people are checking their phones and they're getting that push from influencers to digital, it kind of creates that 360 effect that we'd really be hoping for with that advertising. And also it is a bit more trackable. You get that direct return on investment, that although the outdoor advertisements and magazines can give you an ideal number that people will see it, with the ROI of digital and influencers, it gives you real information that you can use as a learning moving forward. So not only are you getting that direct advertising push, you're getting information that you can use to hone your advertising going forward as well, which is always a great thing for us to use.
That's interesting. And Giles, what's your kind of perspective on the question?
There's room for everything. It depends what the client wants. There's room, and I'm going to talk in the context, I guess, not so much TV and above the line and radio. I'm talking about paying influencers and not paying influencers. I'll just keep it as simple as that. And even in there, there's benefits and pros and cons to both. I live in the world of not paying influencers. I have a bee in my bonnet about what people are called, actually, if we want to get into that. The influence, I believe, and it isn't just me, but I don't know if you're aware, but Nielsen, every year they publish, or every few years, they publish the Trust in Advertising report. And they've been doing it for like 15, 20 years. And they published one in December last year. And the most trusted form of advertising or marketing that they come up with every year is word of mouth recommendations to someone you know. 89% in last year's report was what the figure was. So if you want trust recommendations, then giving someone a product and not paying them and asking them to talk about it in a positive or negative way, they may hate it. We work for brands from toys to games to books to video games. It doesn't really matter what. All we ever ask of people is just, if you love it, say you love it. If you don't, say you don't. I don't want anybody to give anything other than authenticity. However, the people we're working with are literally going to do that. They're going to mention it at the school playground. They're going to suggest it at the water fountain. It's those moments of recommendation where they're at their highest. However, paying an influencer, who I believe, and don't please take offense here, I think should maybe in the industry be called follower advertisers, because that's what you're doing, advertising to your followers. They're great because they reach far more people, make far nicer videos, have far better tools at their fingertips, whereas the people we work with don't do that for a living. They're out doing their normal jobs, and this is just a product that we've sent them to try and talk about if they like it or don't. So as you can see, there's room for both, because advertising to thousands of followers online with amazing content is one thing, an advert, and giving someone a product to talk about negatively or positively in the playground or amongst the mums and dads, not the kids, the mums and dads, is another tactic. Room for both is my summary to my long spiel there.
And that was interesting. So you feel like there's a trade-off in terms of authenticity with follower advertising?
Not just me, a lot of research as well, like Nielsen is the main one. Check it out. I'll send a link afterwards. The Drum published it, and it comes up every time. But there is a trade-off. It's not just me, but yeah. Who would you listen to if somebody's recommending something to you? Your very best friend who knows everything about cars, if you're looking to buy a car, or someone online you've never heard of who's got a lot of followers and is an expert. But if I've got that money spent on a car, I'm really going to listen to my friend. I really am. I can't tell you any otherwise. But I will have heard about the car by the one with thousands of followers. Probably wouldn't have known about it otherwise. That's why there's room for both. Thank you for letting me know about it.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I guess that there's an argument that maybe the relationship people have with influencers, they feel like it is more of a friendship than kind of traditional media. Austin, and Sarah, what's your kind of perspective on that from the position of an influencer? How do you kind of relate to a brand, and how do you kind of navigate that?
Well, it's pretty simple, because we really pride ourselves in authenticity. And that's where we've always started with what we do, because we said, wait, hey, we're not going to compromise on morals and, just start taking brands because of the money. It just didn't sit right with us. And we always wanted to uphold to that kind of moral conduct for ourselves. And completely understand what you're saying, Giles, because I've definitely seen it across the industry where there are influencers which are just promoting brands, and you can really tell that they don't like it. Whereas at the same time, we've also seen influencers really like and take to the product. And of course, they may be getting paid, but they really like the product.
They really do. You can tell.
Yeah, and that comes across, and you can see that with your followers. You can see that with the audience and your supporters. People are not silly. They're not fickle. They understand and they can sense authenticity even through the camera. fortunately, we've been in positions and where we've had 0 followers, right, to start with. And we built already, and one of the things we had was like a true fan theory. I rarely heard of that before I even got into social media. And it was saying, all you need is 1,000 true fans. And that's what really we was focusing on. And we were saying, hey, we don't need tens of millions of followers. We just need 1,000 true followers. And creating that connection with them and that trust with them is really important because, yeah, there should be both. In social media and of course advertisements on TVs, etc.
They hit a different audience.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think the power of where it is now with social media is that it's given more people a voice to speak on. Whereas, you know, let's say 10 years ago, it wasn't pretty much that. It was just, okay, you just saw adverts on TV with celebrities, etc. But now it's given a platform for, let's say, normal people like myself and Sarah to have that platform to speak to people and connect with people on a day-to-day basis.
How do you protect and defend that kind of the trust that the influencer has with their followers when you introduce the marketing aspect to it?
So for us, our influencers, so if a brand comes to us and asks for instance, like we've got a fisherman and we're working with a fishing brand, and this is really unique and very niche, and this is a good example. So if they come to us and say, oh, have you got any fishermen? Or even cryptocurrency influencers at the moment, they're really on the up, you know, then it is up to us to make sure that we only ever suggest influencers that have got the right engagement, the right views, the right followers, but the right fan base, and to ensure that even the dwell time on content is quite strong. And then we would give it to the brand. And the thing with the fans, they're trusted because first of all, they choose to follow that creator. But secondly, they actually feel like they know them. It's like the girl next door. It's like they really engage with and hang on every word or comment, if you like, that the creator's saying. And you can read the comments from the fans and see them regularly. And often the creators, we actually suggest to the creators, providing their positive comments, engage with those fans, comment back, start liking it, because that helps with the algorithm as well. But then the brands will see that, and then you can just look through the comments and you're like, oh wow, I love the outfit you're wearing, or wow, I'm going to purchase that product. And you see all the comments, and then then the brands, they know that we've suggested the right creators to them.
Interesting. Jess, what's your kind of thoughts on the question?
Yeah, it ties really well with what Laura was saying, is that it's not going for the big punchy numbers. It's not going for a follower that has 1 million, you know, an Instagram influencer that has 1 million followers. It is about that authenticity and something that means that we can enter their community that they've built with a brand that, you know, they're happy to represent and that will actually speak to their community. It doesn't do anyone any good if you're forcing something in just so that, you know, it makes it very obvious they're being paid to say it. You want to have that relationship so that the message being shared is authentic and one that then can become a conversation in that space. And I think it's interesting what Giles was saying, because often that traditional media feels like an expert is coming in and saying, you know, recommending or selling something, whereas the conversations in that sphere become a conversation, and it's like you're sharing a discovery with the community. And yes, it's come from a brand, but I think that relationship and the values are there, that you wouldn't be sharing it if you didn't also believe in it. And then that builds those conversations in the comments, it gets that engagement, and that is ultimately the result that we'd be looking for.
Orsine and Sarah, what's your kind of feeling on that? Do you feel like you have to be kind of choosy about the brands that you're kind of matching with and marketing because you're kind of mindful of protecting that kind of trust with your followers?
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that we've always said is, you know, if we're going to work with a brand, one, it has to align like with our brand, let's say our content, you know, which is family couple orientated. So if it doesn't align with that, it's an immediate no.
Have you turned any down?
Yeah. Oh, we've turned loads of people down. Yeah, sometimes it's a sting because the money's good, but we won't do it.
That's brilliant.
But even after that, even if we look at a brand and we're like, okay, it aligns, the product is something we would genuinely either use ourselves or our kids will use. But then after that is, okay, what's the brief? because if they're asking us to be very salesy, we won't do it, because again, that's not our usual content. If they're giving us creative freedom, okay, then we'll accept it, because then it will fit in with our content. Then it won't be like, okay, you know, our videos tend to be funny, I hope. So, you know, so it will be funny, okay, serious, you know, click the link in the bio, go buy this. It wouldn't work, right? And we'd lose followers probably as well, because that trust would be gone. So it has to fit in with our day-to-day content as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to add on to that, I think everyone here knows it, especially in business specifically, you know, trust is the number one thing. And once you don't have that trust, then you're out of business, right? We're not trying to compromise our morals and our ethics in order to get things materially, because those things don't last so long. But how you go to sleep at night is very, very important. You want to be able to lay your head on the pillow and say, you know what, I made the right choice. I didn't sell myself and my soul for some money, but we put the right brand. We're doing right by ourselves. We really like it and we believe in this product. And I think our audience can benefit from that. So absolutely, trust is important.
Plus your kids are involved. You're putting your family in front of the lens.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an exchange as well. Like, you know, even though our followers don't get paid from when we do brands, they are investing their time. They're, you know, they're leaving comments, they're sharing our videos. So our input, let's say, to that is to make it genuine content as well, you know, something they can take away from it. And if they do purchase that, it's not going to be something terrible.
Well, I'd love to have you involved in one of our campaigns if the right.
Absolutely.
We'll let you know. You can pick and choose.
I'm kind of interested in how do children distinguish which messaging is marketing and advertising versus believing in the influencer to have a kind of genuine interest in that product.
Yeah, so we've actually made a choice to not actually advertise directly to children with influencers. So our influencer activity is really targeted at kind of like parents, carers, those gatekeepers. So when we're advertising directly to children, we're looking at platforms like Super Awesome, like Fun Kids Radio. We're doing pre-roll adverts. So the content we're sharing with them is obviously an advertisement. Because as mentioned, those younger children, they won't necessarily be able to distinguish in that influencer content what's real and what's been paid for, no matter that you have to obviously say it's an advert in the copy, but it's not necessarily clear enough to a child at that age. So we've made the choice to do advertising directly to children in a way that's obviously a kind of like, we're introducing a product to you, it's a book, you could buy it if you wanted to, as opposed to that influencer messaging. So we use those platforms that have that security built in, that have that parent trust, and we're able to make sure that we're talking to people in the safest possible way.
So is that on YouTube Kids, Jess?
So on the ad pre-roll, it will be, so kind of targeting across a variety of programs and channels, But it is, again, it's not influencer content, it's an advert that we've made that sits very clearly in an advertising sphere rather than an influencer popping up as if it could have been, I just discovered this book, but they've been paid to do it, because that's not really the messaging we'd like to push out.
Even on a family's channel as well, say for instance, like Winning with the Wilsons, like they say they did a advert for HelloFresh, or no, maybe not. Let's say a product, say Barbie, for instance, and it was a YouTube video. And the adverts that come into that YouTube video could be things like credit card adverts or alcohol adverts. And again, this is where the platform needs to understand, or the AI needs to pick up that it's actually a family content and that it should be contextual advertising and native advertising relevant to that content. But they're just not doing that. And that is my biggest gripe.
Absolutely. Giles, did you have kind of a perspective on that question?
Our kids, my daughters, 15 and 11, they know clearly when an ad is because they play the skip the ad button game. Who can press it fast enough? Yeah. I'm rubbish at it, but we're all hitting that skip button. So those ones, absolutely we know. But obviously when it's content created by someone on Instagram creating something, then the lines are blurred. And you're right, Jess, you mentioned that you've moved away from that or never even were in that sphere of making content targeted at kids. Unilever, did you hear about this? In April, announced in a press release We're not targeting children under 16 years old with any marketing or social media communications, and not using influencers, celebrities, or social media stars who are under 16, fair enough, or, and this is you guys, or Stein and Sarah, primarily appeal to children under 16. They're not even doing, and that's Unilever, they're enormous. So if they're starting to see, possibly the reason is, I didn't see the reason for that, but maybe it's a concern over children cannot distinguish, or certain children, when it's done in a clever way built into the content. So there's an awareness of this. Adults obviously should be able to distinguish between it more often. In my world, it doesn't even come into play because it's not that field of paying people or making an advert when Jackie recommends a book to Mary at the school gates. I don't think anybody would suggest that's an advert, or if she doesn't recommend it, what's that, a negative advert? It's not an advert. So, but I do see that there's a shift, obviously, along from the lines of Unilever.
Yeah, TV ads can go onto children's channels, and then that's targeted.
Also, and Sarah, I kind of was interested to get your thoughts on that. I mean, would you encourage your kids to kind of think of influencer as a career path, or what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Well, as it stands, they don't see it as a career path. I mean, it started, like Ulstein said, it didn't start like, we didn't decide one day, okay, let's aim to be influencers or content creators or whatever. We actually started on YouTube first, and we only started because our now 13-year-old daughter, she wanted to make videos, and there was no way we were going to just let her make videos and upload them to YouTube on her own. So, we kind of like started that with her, isn't it? So our first YouTube videos was him and her making dad and daughter videos, basically. So the way we approach it, and again, I guess this comes down to each influencer and how they go about it, because how we approached it is, we're going to do this fun. If it's not fun, we're going to stop, and we're always having conversation with our kids, even our 3-year-old, she's in a lot more like because our TikTok platform is a lot bigger than our YouTube platform. Our 13-year-old is not in that many videos. Sometimes we get comments like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you had another daughter. But because we need that balance in her school life, we don't want her to think she's a superstar either. Because I think it's very hard. I think it's very hard for adults to manage being on such, a platform with so many followers, and a child is too much pressure, because although we might not let her on TikTok or we might not let her read comments, when she goes to school, the other kids do, So again, I think it comes down to how the parents manage it as well. Ulstein does a lot of commenting. He's the main commenter, as in engaging with people who comment on our videos. Sometimes it's clear that some of the comments are coming from very young people because of how they're talking, that, oh my gosh, I want to be like you, your goals, #goals. And Ulstein will always make it a point, so when he does come across those comments, to be like, just do you're fine how you are, and although we can't get to everyone, if we can just let one person know that this is not what it's cool. It's okay to be where you are, do what you want to do. Like, you don't have to put us on a pedestal almost.
Yeah, because it's even just going to just real life and day to day, at times where we will go out and, someone would come up to us and say, hey, we know you guys, you're winning with the Wilsons, and, can we take a photo? And my first response is always just like, hey, I'm just a normal person, just like you are. I just happen to have a bunch of followers, right? How's your day? Like, how's life? How's things actually going about with you? Rather than, okay, it's just
untouchable.
Yeah, don't talk to me.
Because I think that's for most kids, that's what they want. They want to fit in, they want to be popular, and I think that's why they want to be influencers. It's not just influencers. Before influencers, they wanted to be celebrities, like like David Beckham or whoever, So it's nothing new, but I think
it's more reachable now.
Yeah, but now we're able to actually, we're normal people. It's if you want to be a fireman instead, that's fine too. It's not, you don't have to have this expectation that I have to be an influencer to be accepted, to be famous, to have money or whatever,
Yeah.
I guess it's that accessibility, isn't it, that they're really that really appeals to them as well. Jess, did you have kind of any thoughts on the question in terms of the impact of influencers in terms of aspirational role models for children?
I think it's interesting to look at the people who are working with an agency, and then sometimes they just approach us and they kind of come into our DM and say, oh, we've got a channel, we'd love to work with you, and kind of what it means in terms of the protections for them. And so it's often that we do work with family creators, although our target for our content is kind of parents and gatekeepers. We're often working with families because obviously we publish children's books and it's great to be able to showcase that with a family. But if it's just one person coming to you, it means the responsibility is on us as the brand to make sure that we have the guidelines in place to protect them, because they might not have that information. So, we have really rigorous guidelines on our side, forms to be filled in, permissions. You have to have clarity, what the rates are, how are we going to be using your content, do they know they have the ability to say that don't put this on Amazon, don't put this on advertising, are they aware that they can ask us to take it down after a certain time? So often I think we have to play a role in that as well, where we're giving them the information they need, making sure they're being paid correctly. If somebody's coming up with their first influence thing and offering content for a rate that we know is not what that information is worth, that's our also job to say, actually, we would say for this content, we would pay this and move that forward. So I think that's really interesting also to help. I think there's been kind of a boom in kind of content creators over lockdown because people were trapped at home. They were trying to build communities. They couldn't leave the house. And so how do you have that kind of content, and the way that people are talking to people is online. And so they don't have that background information, how they can then turn that into a business that allows them boundaries. And so actually a part of what we do is make sure that we're working with them to create content that supports their family. They don't feel exploited, that they have content that we can use as a brand, but that also makes them feel valued going forward.
That's great. And that's kind of, I think, a brilliant example of kind of what we were talking about best practice and having a framework in which this stuff can operate. I think that's a fantastic place to kind of end the discussion. So I'd like to kind of thank you all for taking part in that. I'm sure this kind of debate will run on and on. It's certainly given me a lot of food for thought. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.